In my first episode, I mentioned that my view on leadership is based on 3 pillars. 1. Integrity. 2. Elevating others. And 3. The view that leadership is a waypoint, not a destination. Over the next 3 episodes of Visor Up, I will dive deeper into these to explore them further and explain why I believe that leaders need to be resilient and why these 3 pillars build that resilience. Today, I will cover integrity. Welcome to another episode of Visor Up. This is the podcast for managers, founders, executives, and future leaders. I'm Steve Uskadazzopardi, a business mentor and author of Your Leadership Ride, a book that uses motorbike riding as a metaphor for sustainable leadership. With more than 20 years of leadership behind me, I guide leaders who put people first. Why Visor Up? Because on a bike, the visor is your shield. It protects you from the wind, the rain, the noise. But to speak to someone, to hear them, that shield has to go. This podcast is about lifting the protective layer of management speak and getting down to the real gritty truth of what it takes to lead. Visor Up, let's go. I'm starting with integrity because it should be the most obvious, and yet sadly is not. If we look up the definition of integrity, we find 2 meanings. One is honesty, and I will quote the Cambridge Dictionary here. Someone's high standards of doing their job and that person's determination not to lower those standards. And the second meaning is the quality of being whole and complete. Let me start with the first one. A person's standards in executing their work is the professional legacy that they leave behind. We can look at ancient work, like the Pantheon in Rome or the Great Pyramid of Giza. These have precise engineering. The fact that these have withstood the test of centuries, earthquakes, and are still a marvel today are testament to the superlative work that went into designing and building them. Now, I realize that very few of us are working on projects that will survive 2,000 to 5,000 years, but within our context, what greater accomplishment could we have than leaving a legacy that we're proud of? Too many people prioritize other aspects over their integrity, like racing for money at any moral cost or empire building for a false sense of power. The definition reminds me of when my mother taught me the difference between right and wrong and how I now pass on that lesson to my own son. She would say, it doesn't matter if anyone else finds out, whether you're caught or not. You know that what you did was wrong and you need to live with that. So if you are dishonest at work, if you cut corners, if you lower standards to satisfy other prerogatives, you know that you could have done better. You know that you should have done better. Let me be clear here. Integrity is often referred to as doing the right thing, not the easy thing. And I know this because I've lived it. One time, the company I worked for developed a complex software system in-house. The project was not managed very well, unfortunately, and we reached a point where the business had spent millions and we still did not have a platform that worked. The shareholders were screaming at the board to see some result for the huge resources put into the project, and we were being pushed to launch it. We were being pressured to sign off that we accepted the software as fit for use. Now, we did not even have one small module that worked with stability, so I refused to. I was the only manager who stuck my neck out to say clearly, look, we're just not ready. We need more time and we'll get there, but it's not today. My head of department reprimanded me after that, but I still refused to sign off. And then I had the same conversation with his boss, the executive director. He was foaming at the mouth. He was furious at me. He threatened to reject my bonus that year. That is a test of integrity. Do I do what I feel is right, maintain my standards and integrity, or do I give in to get my hands on the money? I still refused to sign. And that year was the first time in 6 years there that I did not get a bonus. Obviously, I left soon after that. Clearly, my values were not aligned with those of the business leaders. Now, how can you train your integrity on this perspective? Pick one task today that no one will ever check or see. Execute it to your highest professional standard anyway, simply because you will know the difference. Let's leave standards there for a moment and move on to the second definition of integrity, the quality of being complete. Now, you might think that's a weird definition. I mean, I don't regularly go to work incomplete. What do I leave my nose behind? Well, maybe my brain on some Monday mornings, but usually I'm all there. In the workplace, the term we use for this idea of completeness is authenticity, or bringing your whole self to work. Unlike what some think, this is not some new age woke concept with no merit, nor is authenticity an invitation to let your emotions run wild at work because that's who I am. Authenticity is about efficiency, in fact. When we do not take our full selves to work, we are wearing a mask to cover the parts that we've hidden. And let me tell you, wearing that mask is heavy, it's an energy drain, and it is exhausting. Think about it on a motorbike. If you ride with a rigid fake posture because you're trying to look cool or tough, you'll be knackered within 5 minutes. You become slow to react to hazards because your mind is split. One half is trying to ride the bike properly, but the other half is busy maintaining the facade. This is fragmentation. When you split your work self from your real self, you lose the agility that comes from being a whole person. Let's picture a scenario where two different leaders, get news of a crisis. One leader wears a mask. He always acts like the hero with the answer. When the shock hits, he doesn't allow himself time to think because he needs to keep up his mask. The team are looking to him for the solution that he always has. So what does he do? He jumps to whatever solution he thinks of first and goes with that. The second leader wears no mask, so he can confidently say, "Well, this is a crap situation. Come on, team, let's put our heads together and see how we can find our way out." Does anyone have any ideas? Yes, this takes a few more minutes to get into action, but it is a direction the team put together as a whole and they believe in. Leading with integrity, which can be as simple as admitting when you're uncertain or tired, actually makes you more resilient because you are not wasting energy on a mask. The second leader called upon the strength and talent of the team to absorb the shock, and they proceeded smoothly. But the first leader, now he is stressing because he's carrying the weight of the mask. He's struggling to get the team behind him because he left them out, and he is petrified that his solution will fail and his facade will come crumbling down. I saw the importance of validating emotions clearly during the COVID lockdown. My team was isolated, worried, and we were working from kitchen tables that we shared with our partners, spouses, flatmates, children, pets. Now, management theory might suggest that I should have focused strictly on our KPIs. Instead, I prioritized connection. We had weekly catch-up calls with every team member and regular team meetings. We didn't start with business. We started with how they were coping. I made it clear that we had space for the stress, the anxiety, and also the laughs. By allowing those emotions into the office, we supported those under mental strain and kept the team united. So what was the result? I never had to chase them for work. Because they felt safe and supported as humans, they showed up as professionals. But our emotions are the messy side of being humans. How do I handle those? In my book, I compare emotional reactivity to road rage. Imagine I'm riding my motorbike and a car cuts me off. He pulls in front of me. I have a choice. I can react with my ego. Maybe I twist the throttle to chase him down, shout an insult. But if I do that, I am putting myself in danger. I take my eyes and my focus off the road ahead because I'm reacting to a grudge. In the office, it's the same. If you let every snarky email crisis trigger an impulsive reaction, you will crash. You stop leading with your brain and you start leading with your impulse. That is not being human, that's being reckless. The goal of authenticity is not to become a robot who suppresses all feelings. No, the solution is to integrate them. You notice the emotion, the anger, you process it, and then you choose your response. You don't ignore the car, but you don't let it dictate your ride. Resilient leadership requires integration, not fragmentation. When you try to switch off your emotions, you leave a vital part of your judgment at the door. Healthy functioning comes from allowing your thoughts and feelings to work together. Integrity is about being the same person inside and outside the office, regulating your emotions with reason rather than suppressing them to fit a mask. When you do this, you give your team the psychological safety to do the same. You get their energy and their enthusiasm, not just their labor. Just a quick note, authenticity does not mean oversharing every emotion or dropping your professional standards. As a leader, you don't need to go and you should not share all your worries with the team. Authenticity means showing appropriate vulnerability and honesty in ways that strengthen work relationships and build trust. So how do you do that? 1. When you don't know the answer, say so. You might say, I don't have all the answers right now, but let's figure it out together. This builds far more credibility and is more efficient than wearing that mask, pretending to be certain when you're not. 2. Next time you're triggered at work, you receive a rude email or whatever it is that pushes your buttons, don't respond immediately. Wait 60 seconds. Step away from your desk, breathe, take a glass of water, and then ask yourself, is the way I'm planning to respond based on my ego, or is it aligned with the professional legacy I want to leave? And then you choose the response that fits your long-term foundation. Let me circle back to the architectural wonders I mentioned before. The Great Pyramid in Giza is around 4,500 years old. It is still aligned to true north with amazing precision. It's built on a perfectly leveled foundation. The leadership parallel comes in relation to the first meaning of integrity, honesty, and maintaining personal standards. If your foundation is true, time cannot embarrass you. You have nothing to be caught out on, you sleep well at night. And for the second definition of integrity, completeness, let's return to the Pantheon in Rome, Italy. At 2,000 years old, it is still the largest unreinforced concrete dome in the world. It remains structurally sound. Its strength comes from hidden engineering. One example is the use of heavier stone at the base and lighter materials towards the top. The leadership equivalent is this. Integrity is your invisible reinforcement. It is what people don't see that holds everything up. So what does this invisible reinforcement look like in a leader's daily life? And why is it invisible? Because integrity is not performative. It is not something you make a show and dance about. Think of leaders like Nelson Mandela, Mahatma Gandhi, Barack Obama. You've never heard them say, "Hey, I'm honest." But you can read it in their every action or communication. It's in their legacy. You might disagree with their politics or their decisions, but there was a consistency between their words and their actions over decades. That consistency is the invisible reinforcement that I'm talking about. It's the refusal to lower their standard even when it costs them. You might need to say it explicitly if you are asked to do something that's in conflict with your standards or values, but otherwise, the actions of integrity are invisible to the outside world. So, what are they? It's the difficult conversations that you have in private. It is when you give credit for successes to others. It's that time you admitted to making a mistake to the board before they found out. Integrity is the silent binder in the concrete. You don't celebrate the foundations or the cement when you look at a building, but without it, you just have a pile of expensive dust. When you look at the Pantheon and the pyramid, you don't think integrity, you just see massive stone structures. But integrity is not rigidity. It is acting and working in a way so precisely aligned to your values that when pressure comes, you can flex and take it, but you do not fracture. As we draw towards the end here, a quick reminder of the 3 tips that I mentioned. 1, to challenge your integrity, pick one task today that no one will ever check or see. Execute it to your highest professional standard anyway, just because you will know the difference. 2, just be honest. When you don't know the answer, say so. Lean on your team to draw on your collective strengths to figure it out together. 3, when you're triggered at work, don't respond immediately. Wait 60 seconds, breathe, and then ask yourself, am I reacting based on ego or in a way that is aligned with the professional legacy I want to leave behind? Integrity is not a badge you wear. It's the invisible reinforcement in your structure. It is the standard you keep when no one is watching and the completeness you find when you stop wasting energy on the mask. If you do the work today, you are not just becoming a better manager, you are building a legacy that, like the Pantheon, can withstand the pressure of time. Join me in the next episode of Visor Up, where we shift from the internal foundation to the external impact. We'll be diving into my second pillar, elevating others. A closing thought. Anyone can build something impressive for one season. Integrity is what allows it to stand the test of time. What are you leading for?